السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه ومن والاه. We continue our class on parenting and family relations in Islam. I want to start off by talking about something we talked about earlier in the day in the Friday khutbah, which is I want the parent to take the position similarly to what a doctor or a physician may do, or what a mechanic may do, which is you're always in a state of assessment. When a patient goes in to see a doctor, the doctor is doing a physical examination. I'm not a doctor, by the way, but we all know what doctors do. A doctor sends you to do scans, sends you to do blood work, sends you to do various tests. What are they trying to do? They're looking for the problem. They hear what you have to say. They're in a state of assessment. In some cases, they may see in this assessment process, they may see indications or symptoms of a potential problem or a problem that is developing. And in the end, the doctor is looking to treat the problem. It may be taking measures to do early intervention. It may be sending you for extensive treatment for a significant problem. This is what the doctor does. The doctor is looking for effective treatment measures. At the same time, the doctor may advise you, may tell you you need to do X, Y, Z things to prevent a problem from getting worse. The doctor may advise you on concerns that may develop and warn you to take preventative measures. This, on many levels, should be something that a parent is constantly engaged in. When you're parenting a child, whatever the stage of development, much of what you're doing is preventative in nature. You're instilling many values, morals, beliefs. You're nurturing the proper development of the child to ward off many of the dangers, the fitan and the challenges the child may encounter. You're also promoting the development of the child in order for the child to be successful in this dunya and in the hereafter. You want the success of this child to be through the deen of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. You want the success of this child to be through piety, through good characters, through morals, through knowledge of the deen. This is what the parent is doing. So in order to be constantly, picture the doctor. You maybe go to a doctor periodically when something is going on. You have an appointment here and there. But when you're parenting, you're with the child frequently and often, day in and day out, maybe all throughout the day. So in that regard, you need to pay attention. You need to be constantly assessing. You need to be constantly self-evaluating. Parenting shouldn't be something you do erratically, or you deploy strategies or approaches that are just based out of emotion. You're just a reactive parent. You don't have a strategy. You don't have decisions that are well thought out. You don't have judgments that are effective. You see parents like this. They're constantly just screaming at their kids, hitting their kids. These are the only tools and measures that they know how to use. And a lot of times it's not really about effective parenting, but it's about taking out their stress on the kids, taking out their anger on the kids. Many parents make these types of mistakes. So in order to parent properly, you need to be paying attention. You need to be a problem solver. We've been talking the past lectures about mistakes that parents make, common mistakes. And one of the huge mistakes is parent not spending enough time with the children. How are you going to assess? Imagine you go to the doctor and the doctor is not giving you attention. You're trying to talk to the doctor, he's not really listening, he's not really focused, he's distracted with other things. What kind of assessment will he do? Some of the complaints you may have or the symptoms you may have may go overlooked. They might not get noticed. Such is the case with the parent. Your son or daughter may be showing signs of problematic behavior. Problems are starting to develop. You're not noticing. Some of these problems may be obvious, you're not paying attention. Some of these problems may be internal. They might be flawed thinking. They might be misconceptions. They might be emotional concerns. The child is showing signs of anxiety, or they're excessively shy, or there's problems are developing. But the parent, how are you going to have early intervention when you don't pay attention? So we live in a world today of distractions. It's very easy to be distracted as a parent, to be preoccupied, to spend your time either busy with your work, busy trying to earn a living, or busy entertaining yourself. You're not really paying attention to the children. And many people parent this way. Their parenting is there's not actually much tarbiyah going on. It's more like supervision. Yeah, the kids are busy, the kids seem okay, yeah, they washed their hands, they ate their food, the time for sleep, but you're not really planting the seeds that will be the prevention of future problems. You're not really intervening or noticing when there are indications that some problems will develop. And in some cases, the child may have severe problems and the parent not really addressing them. They're not a problem solver. Sometimes to address the problem, you have to address it yourself in some cases, but in some cases the problem may be out of your scope. I see this very often. People come to clinics, to physicians, to therapists, psychologists, to imams. When do they come? They're not proactive, addressing the problem in the beginning. No, they come when the problem is huge, when the problem is very difficult to treat and address. This is not smart parenting. This is putting yourself into a difficult position. And we would never do this with our own health. We all know that stage 1 cancer is easier to treat than a stage 4 cancer. And a minor problem in a child is easier to intervene and address than a huge problem. So you have to have this mindset as a parent. I'm paying attention, and I'm problem solving, and I'm addressing problems as we see them. I want to just speak about a few problems today, a few mistakes that parents commonly make. One of these problems is often resorting to hitting the child. I want you to imagine, you go to a doctor or a mechanic, and all the doctor knows how is one method of treatment. That's it. Or you go to the mechanic and they only know how to deal with one problem. Or they only have one tool. You go to a construction worker and all the construction worker has is one tool. He just has a sledgehammer. How effective will the construction worker be? How effective will the doctor be? How effective will the mechanic be? They will not be effective yet. Within Islam, there are dawabit and conditions to hitting. Many parents think the only way to do tarbiyah is hitting. And in reality, if you're resorting to such a method, it should not be your go-to. It should not be every problem you hit the child. And many parents resort to cruelty, harshness. They are actually taking on sins. They think because they will resort to harming the child. They will actually hurt the child. They will use abusive. Some parents, especially maybe more so back home, they will even burn the child, and they will heat up something and burn the child. They will do some harmful things, and thinking this is permissible and acceptable. Don't think because you're a parent, it's okay for you to use any kinds of means, as if you own the child and you can abuse them or harm them as you wish. This is not acceptable. And in reality, it might give you the illusion that it is working, but in reality, you could be psychologically damaging the child. The child can grow to become bitter. This can actually, in some cases, cause the child to have, the child becomes rebellious. They'll turn against you and rebel against you. Because, so, overly harsh, hitting of the child, not acceptable. And frequently hitting the child, it's not acceptable. This should not be your only tool. Thirdly, you need to be measured. What I mean by measured is, every situation, the intervention has to be appropriate and has to be befitting of the problem. Let's use the metaphors that we're using. You're not going to see a construction worker nailing a nail into the wood with a sledgehammer. The sledgehammer is overkill. It's too much. You should not parent when there's a minor problem. It should be dealt with a minor intervention. You should not be using overkill approaches to address minor problems. This is a mistake. Okay? So, and have empathy. Put yourself in the position of the child. The child is a human being. It doesn't deserve to be hit non-stop all the time, so on and so forth, and resorting to these type of abusive approaches, and then saying that the Prophet ﷺ said so and so and so and so. No, this is not. We will come to the topic of hitting further on in the course in more details, but for now, I want you to know the mistakes that parents resort to these forms of abuse and unjust parenting approaches, and you're really overstepping the rights of the child by resorting to these tactics. Okay, so I want to be clear. This goes against the Sharia. This goes to really harm and hurt the child and so on and so forth. This is not acceptable in Islam. Number two mistake that parents make is that they make dua against their children. We talked earlier about the importance of dua and asking Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to give you a righteous child, and asking Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to raise your child to be in a very nice way, to be like a very good and upright Muslim and obedient and so on and so forth. Some parents, out of frustration and of anger, they'll make dua against their kid, and they'll make some very harsh statements. They'll say such things like asking Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to take the child or to harm the child and so on and so forth. And oftentimes these things are said out of frustration, but the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he warned us against this. قال رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم لا تدعوا على أنفسكم ولا تدعوا على أولادكم. Don't make dua against yourself or against your children. Jabir reported, and this hadith is in Muslim, Jabir reported that God's Messenger sallallahu alayhi wasallam is saying, do not invoke supplication on yourselves or on your children or on your possessions, lest you happen to do it at a time when God has asked for something when God has asked for something and He grants you the request. And it might be a moment where this dua is accepted. You say, may Allah take my son, may Allah Rabbana khallasni minnu, blah blah blah. These du'as actually could be accepted by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The child has a right for you to wish well upon them. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has put within the hearts of parents a love and nurture and tenderness and a mahabba for their children. There's very little in the way of nusus shar'iyya instructing us to love and care for our children, because this is built within us. So it really goes against the fitrah to make dua against the child. And we'll share an incident. جاء رجل إلى العالم الجليل عبد الله بن المبارك يشكو إليه عقوق ابنه فسأله ابن المبارك أدعوت عليه؟ قال نعم. فقال ابن المبارك اذهب فقد أفسدته. So a man came to the renowned scholar Abdullah ibn al-Mubarak complaining about his son's disobedience. Ibn al-Mubarak asked him, did you pray against him? Did you make dua against him? Essentially the man replied, yes. And Ibn al-Mubarak then said, go, for you have corrupted him. So this is a very big mistake for parents to make dua against their children. The last mistake I want to talk about is one of the methods, of course, in parenting is rewarding the child and punishing the child. Many times, actually forgive me, that's not the last point, but we'll have one more point after that. So it's important that when you promise the child a reward, that you follow through, you're consistent. You follow through with your promise, that if you tell him you do such and such, I will reward you, and that the reward is relatively immediate. And you don't tell the child, I'm going to get you a candy, and then if you do this, and if you come to the masjid, I'm going to take you to get a candy, and then you don't get them the candy, or you delay getting them the candy for a lengthy period of time. This is a mistake. And same thing with the punishment. If you tell the child, if you don't listen, or if you do this, you'll get this and this of a punishment, and then either you don't follow through, okay, or your follow through is extremely delayed. So this is a mistake in parenting, okay? You need to be consistent, you need to be a person of your word, you need to follow through. That doesn't mean, if you make a promise, you could reevaluate and resort to a different approach, but you need to not lose credibility when you're parenting the child. The last point I said I wanted to talk about is mistakes that parents make, is parents who fight in front of their children. So parents who have arguments, they have conflict, they have fights, and they do this in front of the children. This is unwise, this is unacceptable for parents to be fighting in front of the children. And in some cases, parents will pin the child against the mother or pin the child against the father and resort to these type of tactics. And you'll have children in the home thinking negatively of the mother, or children in the home thinking negatively of the father. This type of creating division and teams in the home against one another, this is obviously unacceptable. In these cases, everybody loses. The kids will play both sides, whatever is in their best interest. The stress of the fighting. Look, husbands and wife will have conflict, will have disagreements. Of course, they need to be civil, and they need to address these problems in private. Have time designated to work through these problems, right? But don't be screaming and fighting and having escalated situations. Also, each parent has to preserve the prestige and the status of the other parent. You should never make fun of your wife, of the mother of the children, in front of the children, or put her down, or diminish her status. Neither should the mother ever do that about the father. Undermine the father, or discredit the father, or put the father down, or disrespect the father or her husband in front of the children. This is also damaging. Don't do any actions basically that are damaging to the status of the parent in the home. And when you parent, be consistent. Okay, be consistent as parents. We don't want to have situations where one parent is coming off of as overly strict, while the other parent is permissive and undermines the father, for example, and the mother, when the father's not around, she lets the children do the things that the father said not to do. This is poor parenting, this is a mistake. Be mindful that young children, from a young age, even infants, the stressors in the home and the toxicity on the home has an effect, has a harmful effect on the children psychologically. Some people wonder, why is my child extremely anxious? Why does my child have fear? Why does my child seem unsettled? Why does my child seem having these stress responses? In some cases, because of these experiences, even when the child is in the womb, parents fighting, husband yelling, mother screaming, this and that, the child grows up, they're emotionally unstable. So be mindful of this. Don't think that the young children don't notice and cannot be affected by these things. And with that, inshallah, we conclude some of the mistakes that we've been talking about. Starting next week, inshallah, we'll jump deeper into some of these topics. And jazakumullahu khair, barakallahu feekum, wa sallallahu wa sallam ala Muhammadin wa ala ali Muhammad.